Let's practice. We'll take a few minutes first to relax the body, to fall not asleep, but to fall onto ourselves, and maybe to a certain degree to fall outside of time. Let the space, let the room, let the silence be felt. Both the core and the backdrop to our reality that sometimes gets lost in the noise. Land on your body, on your physicality, on the sensation of gravity, of warmth, on the sensation of life vibrating. Let the thoughts think themselves. It's futile to try to stop it. That's one of the reasons I start with Savasana. They run by themselves for a few minutes, slowly fade into the background as felt experience slowly moves to the foreground. Go through the shape of your body, the basic drawing, your shoulders, your hips, arms and legs. If there is a feeling of holding, of tensing, of resisting, drop it. And do the same with your neck and jaws. From there, I usually move attention through my arms and my legs. I stay a little longer in the joints, elbows and knees, wrists and ankles. Being moving parts, they're usually a bit more sensitive to perception, or perception is more sensitive to them. And then you link the whole line of the arm and the whole line of the leg. Muscle is easy to feel, it's relatively easy to penetrate. And if you stay a little longer, you can find the ground level of muscle, a true resting point. It changes over time, depending on your physique and your level of exercise and your age and a bunch of other things. But within that particular moment in your life, we try to find the 0 point. Then I usually relax my back, lower back. We tend to be sensitive there, falling heavy on the sacrum, trying to connect with the sacroiliac joints as well, and maybe once again refining the relaxation in the buttocks. Then the next heavy point is going to be under your heart, in your thoracic spine. I like to feel the heavy point in the middle and almost like I'm melting to the sides, as if my shoulders would want to grow a little away from each other. The next heavy point is at the back of your head. And in between your upper back and your head, the spinal line is your neck, your cervicals. And the feeling there is almost as if you would need to rearrange the position of the head to allow your neck to grow. Then I usually go through the same line but in the front. The feeling of probably start in the solar plexus because it's very vibrational. It has a lot of energy. There's a reason why it's called the solar plexus, the sun in the body. And usually I take it as a point of reference and then from there go above, relax the heart, the area of the sternum, and then one step down and relax the navel region. The small intestine feels heavy against the spine, the lower abdomen in general. What is characteristic of this line in the front is that it carries emotion, stress, joy, excitement, insecurity, grief, sadness. So this central line in the front calls for your breath. It's highly vibrational. It's telling stories. And when the stories feel uncomfortable, which often do, our tendency is to move away from the region and the breath recedes and takes refuge in the upper floor of the lungs alone. So by falling out of time and erasing the consequences that it might have in real life to deal with this discomfort. That's the reason sometimes we hide from it, to not have to face it when we are talking to someone or at work. So in this moment, there is no need not to face it. That's the whole point of practice. So I move towards it with my breath. Slowing it down. I never like to do a super radical shift of the breath early on. I like to feel it coming towards me. But at this point, we've been diving onto ourselves for over 10 minutes. You can slowly begin to modulate the breath. Longer waves, softer transitions. Don't impose a rhythm. Mark the rhythm of every breath very independently and very present on what is felt in the moment. And then see how the breathing touches. You can focus first on these three centers that I mentioned, and then we move up towards the throat and the face. We relax the face in depth. And we also move down towards the pelvis and the genitals, the reproductive region. Until this avenue in the center of the body feels, I was going to say peaceful, but let's say at least ground zero of our baseline anxiety. Sometimes peaceful. Move attention a little bit to the sides. For this, you can also use your breath. The movement of the diaphragm will allow you to feel the stomach on the left, the liver on the right, the kidneys. With bigger waves of breath, you can feel your intestines as well. If you take bigger breaths that really fill up your lungs, you also feel the push of the rib cage against the armpits and how they pull from the collarbones. You feel the lungs expanding inside the rib cage. Maybe you feel a little hug to the heart at the end of an inhale. And when it comes to the face, my feeling is always allowing for sincerity in the expression from the inside out. You're not gonna have like rampant emotions in Shavasana. I mean, it can happen some days, yeah. But there might be a color to your expression, to your mood. You know, peaceful, excited, little under the weather. But I think by relaxing the face, we take the drama out of what it means to feel an emotion, and we let it be. I am accompanied by my breath. I feel grounded. So if a relatively uncomfortable emotion or anything like that expresses itself through the face, here is the safe space to allow that to happen. And often is the contrary. Often there is a soft realization of how good it feels to take a little time for you. To move towards a little more subtlety, there's a few things that you can do. One that I really like is to feel the oscillation of pressure between the base of the skull and the neck and the base of the spine and the sacrum in the breath. So as you inhale and the lungs inflate, they pull from the heart a little up, they move the neck, they move the lower portion of the spine, and then as you exhale, the neck lengthens a little, the lumbar spine lengthens a little. So there is an alternation of pressure at both the top and the bottom. Top and the bottom of the spine. It's very subtle, but that's what you want. You wanna give your perception objects of attention that are subtle. So it undergoes a natural process of refinement. And then the next easy, subtle object of perception that you can choose is maybe if you enter through temperature, through the feeling of warmth in the body, that connects you with this underlying vibration that life is. When we look at something alive versus something inert, like a stone. I mean, at the subatomic level, everything is vibrating, but what we perceive as life, it has a, I will fail at the scientific terms or the scientific explanation, but there is this vibrance to life that you can perceive, this bioelectricity, this prana, this chi, and that in our experience field comes up as, yeah, the experience of vibration in different frequencies, in different layers, in different degrees. Take maybe one or two deeper breaths. We begin to prepare our exit into a simple sequence of floor positions, very simple. First, maybe bend your legs and place your feet on the floor. And you can take a little time to help your breath grow in your belly by placing your hands in your lower abdomen, filling them up with your breath. Inhale and exhale slowly. You can almost imagine that your hands are a being, a baby, a kitten. And you give your breath a little bit of warmth by moving this kitten up and down with your breath. I think objectivity and a sense of healthy detachment from one's problems is interesting in practice. But if you can envelop that in warmth and care without it becoming too clinical or almost cynical, you know, spiritually bypassing our problems, I think it works better. I think to add to your breath, to your practice, a sensation that you care for you. Yeah, it makes it human. And when you begin to care as a main fundamental energy, this care expands through your life and the people you love. You can also move your hands a little to the sides and see if besides the breath moving easy towards your belly, so besides feeling the breath reaching the pelvis, also that you allow yourself to feel the lateral expansion that the torso receives when you breathe. At the very bottom, it's almost like your hip bones are separating at the end of the inhalation. You can feel that as well at the bottom of your rib cage in your floating ribs. And in general, expand the breath and move it through your torso, feeling if there is any area that is not moving, if there is any area that can welcome the breath with more precision. And then we're going to put this breath in a tiny bit of motion. Very simple. Lifting the hips and tilting them a little, so you imagine leading with your tailbone. So you lift it up, and then at the end when it's lifted, you almost bring it towards your nose. And then when you drop your pelvis back down on the floor, as the sacrum touches the ground, instead of just stopping there, you keep dragging it towards your head. So you have this feeling of the lumbar arch really increasing and then extending and almost rounding in the other direction. I'm moving very slowly, very slowly. Maybe every time that I go up, I go a little higher. And I'm already here trying to fit the breath and the movement together. This movement can actually be done with the inhale and the exhale inverted. I do it sometimes. I think the most natural is to inhale when you move up and to exhale when you move down. But the dragging of the sacrum towards your upper back also fits nicely with an inhale. And the extension of the lower back fits very nicely with an exhale, and then you could continue lifting the hips. And then as well as we move up and down a few times, there might be moments that you want to stay a little longer. And at some point we are going to set for a half bridge position. Lifting one hip, lifting the other hip, feeling them independent, setting the shoulders, rolling them under the upper body until the neck is no longer touching the floor. Then oftentimes I take a little pause here, dropping the hips slightly, and then I set up for the full position. And once you are in asana, you give yourself to the breath. Think of asana as the operating table, your body as the patient, your mind as well, and your breath as the surgeon that comes and not really cuts, but illuminates. It's a surgeon of light. And I like sometimes, once I'm in the ceiling of my position, to have a moment towards the end where I kind of go into it a little extra. Maybe the last one or two breaths. And then drop the hips down. Relax your back. Relax your breath. And from this position, almost exactly where the feet are, I will drop both knees to the left. The left knee rests more or less on the floor. I think for most people, maybe some of you are still a little floating, you could put a pillow under the knee. And the right leg hovers over the left one. If the inside of the right knee hurts, that's not meant to be. You can put a cushion under. And then I place my hands on the hip, right hip. You don't really need it. This hand placement thing, I think it comes a lot because I practice Shiatsu, so I'm very used to relate to things through touch. But it does help. It does help to feel that point of reference, not just inside the body with the breath, but externally with your hands. And occupy the space between those hands or inside the right hip ball with kind, loving breath in long cycles. A good opportunity to connect with the right side of the diaphragm. Because it's buried in the body, we don't think of it as having parts or different sections or areas, but it's like any other part that you move. There is a sense of refinement over time in the way you move it. So in this position you can feel the movement of the diaphragm and the way it affects the whole right side of the body, moving towards the hip. we return to center, we indulge in time. We feel the symmetry line again. And we drop the knees to the right. Our breath target now will be the left hip. And one thing, because the movement originates in the diaphragm, the sensation is that the pressure increases from there, moving down towards the hip, and the volume of the body increases as the inhalation progresses. But mentally, another way to think about it is almost as if you were breathing from the place that you want to touch with your breath. So a little game that you can do with yourself is imaginarily use your imagination and place your nose on your left hip in a way that it gives you the impression that the breath comes from there. It sounds like a silly thing, but actually works quite well. And remember, if the inside of the left knee is delicate or is hurting, place a folded blanket or a couple of cushions. These simple positions that you hold for a long time, they're little meditations. Sometimes I ask people, do you meditate? And they say no. And then I ask, do you do yin or restorative yoga? And they say yes. There's not much of a difference. Sitting practice, you stay for longer time. There is a little less variation. But basically the mind is folding inwards, feeling. There is thought, there is memory, there is imagination, there is visuals. But your attention is on the evolution of it all without getting hooked on any of it. If we return now to the middle, one thing that is going to feel good is to roll a little bit in the lower back, the buttocks. Get onto the sides, try to find the resistance from the bone inside the body and squeeze the flesh between it and the floor. Just a little bit. And then if you hold on to your knees, either inside the hands or you can create a frame with your arms, and then try to release the weight of the hips. You will feel a soft pull in the lower back, and simultaneously release as much as you can the weight of your shoulders and your head. So both under your neck and under your sacrum, you feel an intention to fall, to elongate. A good opportunity as well to reconnect with the breathing and maybe extend it a little extra. Just play with the next couple of breaths and see if you can, yeah, just explore the outer boundaries of the breath. And then if you place now the feet back on the floor with the heels of the hands, you can massage your upper thighs. Not so much massage the flesh also, but push the bone away. And once again, it will give you a sensation of space in your lumbar spine, a space that you try to touch with your breath. And with the feet back on the floor, I'm going to lift my hips up once more. Do that lift and release of the hips. Moving very slowly at this point, moving exactly at the rhythm that my breath is going. And then, by lifting into the bridge again, we want to free up a bit more space in the upper chest. So without compressing the lower back too much, I'm lifting my belly, my hips a little extra and increasing the length of the inhalations and the volumetric expansion in the chest a little extra. Very calm, very precise. Especially if your lower back is sensitive, this is a position to be mindful in. Release to the floor once again. Lift the knees and we drop them to the left to go for a spinal twist. And give also the right shoulder a little time to open and relax. This position opens you to the awareness, to the respiratory awareness of the whole right side of the body. The previous one, it was more clear that the aim was the hip. Now it has moved a little to the back, but also you can connect the position entirely through the right side, all the way to the shoulder and the armpit in one single inhalation. So almost part of my daily practice, a beautiful position to treat the right side of the body. And if a nice dog lays down by your mat, even better. This is an interesting posture to at least once or twice to go for a full inflation of the lungs. Start with abdominal breathing, keep moving up, and really feel like the whole right side of the torso cylinder, it's expanded from bottom to top. We move to the other side, but we take a little time in the middle. Little neck massage, little dog bolster moment if you're watching the video. And then we go to the other side. Treatment for the left side of the body. Another thing I like to mention when we do floor practice is to keep returning to your spine. For as long as it's horizontal, it has the opportunity to decompress from the pressure of walking vertical all day and sitting. So besides whichever is the primary area of the body that is attracting your attention, there is also a secondary line of attention that is passing all the time, or at least intermittently, through the intervertebral spaces, through the line of the spine. And you can find the relaxation there almost everywhere, but there are certain areas that really are, like I said before, very sensitive for our modern world dwellers. The lower back is going to be one of them, and since the phones are here, the neck as well. Yeah. We return to center, move a bit, and now we're gonna get ready to do a bit of sitting practice, a little bit of movement, a little bit of asana. So let's sit up, clean up the mat, find a comfortable upright position. I don't think I will say anything, but just in case. And I'll start with a little release practice for the neck, dropping the head down, rolling it to the sides, moving slowly at the rhythm of the breath, staying for a bit on each side to stretch if you want. Do it your own way. I do it very slowly, and at the rhythm of the breath. Sometimes you might need to open your mouth a little to relax your jaws. Neck rolls are also a good trick to calm down your breath. If you come, not in this case, but if you come from an intense part of the practice where somehow your breath got worked up, you pause for a moment and you begin to move slowly your neck and you attract the breath to the movement rhythm until the breath slows down. To stretch the back of the neck, try to straighten your back very clean so you isolate the stretch only on the neck. I'm doing it in this case by placing my hands on the floor behind me. And then to stay on the proper side stretch of the neck, the same. You want to have the opposite shoulder grounded, very clean. So I'm holding it with the opposite hand behind the back. You can just plant your hand on the floor. But we give a nice stretch to the right side of the neck. And then a nice stretch to the left side of the neck. We recover the straight position for the back. And then I'm gonna get a little bit into the lumbar spine. So at the rhythm of the breath, usually starting with an exhale, dropping the belly button towards the back, sitting further back towards your tailbone and the back of the sit bones. Then the next inhalation, bringing the belly button, no, the belly button forward and rolling over the sit bones towards its front. And then alternating this movement, but instead of just kind of get bored of it and just move as quickly as we can, like really slowing it down, bringing it into the breath and finding nuance. I find first the lower back somehow is my sensitive spot and it's maybe a little more difficult to connect with it. But once it feels like it's moving, then that same wave, you want to travel it throughout the rest of the spine. So the movement becomes a little bigger, um, involving your upper abdomen, your chest. And then we begin to also move it towards the sides to massage the hips with the movement itself, drawing circles around your perineum, let's say. And similar to before, more center on the clarity of the movement than on the speed, moving really slowly, moving with the breath, and increasing the movement in range, in size, only when the previous circle felt comfortable. And then I'm going to allow a little bit of improvising just to get into the upper spine. And I do this by creating resistance with my hands against my legs and allowing the upper body to dance a little with my attention on the way my upper back is moving, on the way my upper spine is moving. Then free the shoulders a little bit. I am moving not in a predetermined pattern. You can move as you like. I'm moving with the breath, but I'm kind of playing with different variations. Just to feel that sense of mobility in the upper back between the shoulder blades, connected with the neck, connected with the lumbar spine, so the whole thing feels like a unity, like a very fluid unity, rather than different parts. We drop the left arm on the floor to open up a side stretch on the right. The attention will go mainly to the space between the right hip and the bottom of the ribcage on the right, and try to move the breath in that direction. With the left hand, you are also setting the left shoulder. Remind yourself, draw a beautiful external rotation. And we try to carry the line from the hip to the hand, following a middle way of effort without indulging either in too muchness, but also without feeling empty and absent. We move to the other side. Set your right shoulder, externally rotate it, set the line of the left side of the body, and then we move breath to play with the flesh between left hip and left shoulder. And also worth mentioning, on the other side you have a compression, so you are also invited to feel how the breath is pushing even a higher degree of pressure on the right kidney, on the ascending part of the colon on the right. Breathe, feel, enjoy. Let's go for the twist. I usually keep my left hand behind me to maintain the length of the spine. Entering and exiting the positions a couple of times before I commit to maintain the posture and then breathe into it. It's something I do sometimes to begin an asana with a dynamic preamble and then commit to it and fully breathe it. And let's go to the other side. Make sure that you're sitting in between your hips. It's very easy in this position to lean towards the right in this case. So this introduction with a little bit of movement and a little bit of fidgeting within the breath is for you to find that central line that feels satisfying, that feels harmonious. Then to grow into the asana without urgency, exploring your muscular potential, exploring the resistance that your flesh opposes to your muscular potential, and then have the breath mediate between the two. Be steady, be patient, be present. We go back to center, we massage the hips, the lower back, the shoulders, the upper back with a little bit of movement. You can improvise a bit if you want. And then we are gonna get into the opening of the chest and the shoulders with a little sequence that has become part of my daily routine as well. So we bring the hands behind ourselves with the fingers pointing forward, and we engage the arms pushing into the hands. But then we alternate from the right to the left, really feeling the elasticity in motion of all the layers and all the tissues that form the right shoulder, inquiring into the resistance and the flexibility of each shoulder independent. And then we try to link the movement in a somewhat circular pattern. We fall in the center between the hands. We rise into the one side. We move through the top to the other side. And then at some point it's going to feel nice to keep that central position at the top. Lift the heart. Expand the space around the collarbones. Create space between the shoulders. And then give ourselves in this position a few big inhalations. This is a place to inhale big. Calm. Sometimes we inhale big and then it creates a sense of urgency. Measure the quality of your inhales by the quality of the exhale that follows. We return to sitting position, we straighten up the back, and we're going to settle for a breath practice. I'm not going to guide you in a particular rhythm. Set your ujjayi to a nice, balanced tune. Almost think of it as the singer's voice if you're using ujjayi. If you're breathing in silence, you have a slight more challenge because you have to control your breath exclusively with the diaphragm. Ujjayi gives you support to set the rhythm. But in either case, just expand your breath now for a few minutes. Calm, big, powerful inhalations. Allow for a good transition, nice space between breaths. There is no need to push the exhalation, we just cushion it. We let it unfold calmly, we let it reach the end. We allow for a little pause between breaths, not a holding of the breath, but a little silence. And then between regulating the rhythm, regulating the sound if you're breathing ujjayi, and staying very sensitive and very present to the nuances. When am I going too much? When am I going too little? Then I'm not sure you need to count the breath. I like the feeling that it's free, that one breath can be a little longer than the other, that you can take a little break. So just focused, present, calm, slow, and give yourself to breath for a few minutes. If you're watching the video, the original practice, the battery ran out. So I had to record this part separately. That's why it's different. This is a space that I don't really time myself. I never did. I never tell myself if it's gonna be 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 50 breaths or anything like that. I really get into it and I go for it. Sometimes it can be next to an hour, sometimes can be 10 minutes. But I find important to allow the intelligence of the day and that the moment can inform you of what is needed today. What I do care is that for the time that I'm doing it, I'm present. If I see my concentration beginning to break, I'll try to refocus. But I also try to be honest with myself and, accept when the frame for practice is, the window for practice is closing and it's time to move on, yeah. But the idea is that when you are giving yourself to a breath practice or a meditation practice, there is nothing else. For as far as you know, you could be sitting at the top of a mountain right now, or in a cloud, or in prison. It doesn't matter. You are your breath in this moment. At times, controlling the breath can feel a little tense in the shoulders, in the jaws, even the diaphragm can feel a little, um, like when you are asked to do an exercise. Sometimes you get into it and it's easy, and sometimes you get into it and it can be a bit forceful. Um, so allow yourself to relax in between sections. Maybe open your mouth, maybe, whatever you need to do to relax your jaws and your throat. Even take a minute or two and then come back to it again. When we inhale, we simply inhale. And when we exhale, that's all we are doing. We are just exhaling. For sitting meditation, I'm quite forgiving for the position of my back. It needs to be straight, but you can relax a little in the lower back, at least at times. If it's a breath practice, the position is so important for the breath that I really make an effort to keep my back upright. And if it's taking too much effort, then I will put a higher cushion. But I don't recommend to do breathing practice with a crooked spine. If that's the case, if your hips are not open enough, I would sit at the edge of a chair or at the edge of a sofa and really have your back upright. It really makes a world of a difference. When you inhale, be aware, be conscious that you're recharging. Remind yourself of how prana is being absorbed by your every cell. And when you are exhaling, excess baggage, weight that is no longer needed to be carried, toxicity, fear. The feeling that what we have once been is already in us, so we don't need to carry anything extra. When you finally let your breath fall back to its natural rhythm, it's tempting to just lay down into Shavasana after a breath practice, but it's nice to see the energy rearranging itself still in the sitting position for a few minutes, even if it's just a handful of minutes. You are going to see your diaphragm bouncing back to a natural rhythm, a oscillating rhythm. If you observe your breath for the next 10 minutes, yeah, every breath is independent, every breath is unique. But the general direction will be to get a little shorter, lighter. And as the diaphragm undergoes this process of naturalizing and relaxing, the energy field of the body is very clear. It's very easy to feel after pranayama. We simply open perception, we simply feel, we listen. A great deal of what we consider quality in our practice, it hangs on what are the preconceptions that we have and the pre-existing beliefs and what we expect meditation should be. But if you drop all that, then you simply sit with your breath, with your experience. That's enough. One thing I like to do towards the end, when practice is finishing, I open my eyes, I welcome the world, but still feeling the inside. Teaching my mind that you can be fully committed, fully engaged in the world, and yet be aware of your inner life, of the quality of your breath, of the you inside. And we close the practice with a little prayer of gratitude. I let you do your own, but yes, thanks to life, thanks to your loved ones, thanks to your teachers, thanks to your students. Thanks for the good and thanks for the bad. Thanks for having the opportunity to be here. What a gift. Thank you for practicing with me. Hope it was a beautiful one. I lay down after this practice in Savasana. You probably can move on from this position. The practice has been soft enough. But if you have the luxury of a little more time, yeah, lay down. Go again through your body. Find again that ground zero. Yeah, and I guess at the center of the matter is find yourself to be good company. I think when being with ourselves stops being threatening and scary, then it's very natural that we can open to others and yeah, bring a little light out there. Light outside as it is inside. Thank you very much. May you be happy. May all beings be happy. See you soon.